What's going on, guys, and welcome back. The July season starts today, and we'll be breaking down the new season pass card and break down is it worth purchasing, as well as all the new cards coming this month with the new Spotlight caches. They're going to be more accessible than ever, and we're going to rate them and how we see them impacting the meta. We're also going to be breaking down Infinity Conquest. This last week has been insane. We're going to talk about good decks, strategies, and our overall opinion on the game mode as we close out this season. We're going to be talking about all this today and more on this episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Alex Coccia. Hello. Happy July. Happy Canada Day. Is that your 4th of July, yeah?
Yeah, it's on July 1st, but yes, it's definitely his Canada Day weekend here.
Is it the same? It's the same. Is it fireworks? Is it the same thing?
Yeah, fireworks. We even wave the American flag, if you believe that.
No.
Yeah, it's basically the same. We have fireworks, the whole thing, barbecues. It's been a wild weekend, but I love it. It's like a very family-oriented weekend. You know, the kids are swimming, hot dogs are on the BBQ, burgers are getting flipped. It's a great time, Cozy.
Did you enjoy some nice sandwiches? Hot dogs?
Yeah, I did. Honestly, not a lot of mayo usage on the hot dog sandwiches this time around. But what I will tell you is my wife and we purchased something called mayo chup, which I thought was pretty cool. It's basically mayo and ketchup in one, and it's basically a condiment for the hot dog sandwich. And it was a hit. Honestly, people loved it.
What do you do when you're Heinz ketchup? You know, like you can't reinvent yourself. So they're like, hey, let's just experiment and do. Is it mayo chup? Is that better than KO? Yeah, probably. Ketcho's better than Maychup.
They must have done the research here. I would dare to assume that they know that mayo chup sounded better than whatever the hell you just tried to say.
Like a $6 million research R&D. That probably, again, what is Heinz buying these days? Okay, good stuff, man. Well, happy 4th of July for all the U.S. listeners. It's Monday, so it's tomorrow. It's in an awkward... Holidays are weird when they're like on a Tuesday. Dude, we've got some good subjects today. We have July, the brand new season. So we're going to be talking the new season pass card that comes out tonight. We'll also be talking about all the new cards coming out this season. Sprinkle in a little bit of Spotlight caches, and then just talk about July as a whole. And bro, it's the season of fire. What are we going to be talking about on your side of the channel, Mr. Alex?
On my video, we're actually be talking about the season pass cards ranked, which I think is super important. We're going to go all the way back in history. We're going to rank the season pass cards and where we feel that they land in terms of overall power, utility, and whatnot. We're also going to talk about our favorite cards this season. It's been a wild season. Move season was always going to be wild. And we're going to talk about our favorite cards that have really risen our spirits and our rank throughout the season. And then finally, we're going to talk about the quality of life changes that we want most in Marvel Snap. Cozy and I both agree that like Marvel Snap is a fantastic game, but overall there are a few things that can most definitely be improved on to make the game just a little bit more user-friendly.
All right, Alex. Well, it's the July season pass, and our new season pass card is Phoenix Force, which is a 5-cost card. Notably, we don't have a lot of high-cost season pass cards. Means we're going to play it a little bit less. But I think this thing has some potential, and it's got some synergy, and it's got some interesting mechanics. What are your first thoughts on the card? And then we'll talk about like other card combos we see working.
My first original impressions are that this seems like it'd be very complex to play. I feel like the play pattern behind it is surprisingly complex. The deck synergies, I think, are going to be very intricate. In the example video, they showcase something like a Human Torch getting blown up and then Phoenix Force. That seems very obvious, but I think the true power of the card will be unlocked with very niche synergies. And I think it's going to be difficult to pilot. I think that the deck building considerations are massive, and that's what I love. I love when a card is released and it's not like solved. It's not like, well, that's a Human Torch card, or that's like we've had cards that like have kind of been like immediately obvious as to what their intentions and how they're played. This one feels like a wide open landscape.
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting too is I feel like more often than not, like a card is destroyed in a game between locations, Shang-Chi, Killmonger. Like there's a bunch of things that can get cards destroyed, right? A 6 power, let's just start there. Like look at it for what it is. It's definitely below average for 5-cost cards, right? We've got like a Captain Marvel over here. So if you just like whiff and it does nothing, then you have that on curve that didn't do anything. And then you have this kind of safety get. I think there's some interesting conversations there. So on reveal, revive one of your destroyed cards and merge with it, right? So think of a Hulkbuster, guys. This isn't going to replace the cost. You can't revive something that didn't die. So that's Deadpool, Wolverine, and Sabretooth even can't come back. And this is going to make it move each turn that you're able to somehow past turn 5. So most of the time you could probably just move it on turn 6 which is kind of cool. It makes anything a Vision, which what is Vision's best point, right? Is that you can play mind games. Let me open up. Is this like gonna make Vision worse?
It feels like it'd make Vision worse because, like, I mean, Vision's a 5/7, right? And this one's gonna have the reproc of the on reveal effect of the card that it revives, also be mobile while also adding its power. So I mean, it's always going to be basically over 5/7. Unless like what you're reviving a Uatu is even then it's more. It's a 5/8. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of like it's a bit of power creep on Vision slightly, but it does require a little more moving parts to get it there.
Yeah, but it's like almost like Captain Marvel and Vision may finally have to be looked at. I know Snow Guard originally was going to make like a mini Vision. They've been experimenting with like trying to get this done. And now we have this. Now, there's obviously going to be just immediate synergy with Move and Destroy, right? Which is cool. I actually did not look at this season and think, hey, Move gets another kind of small bonus. But, dude, I got to say, I think that immediately, I like the idea of having something like Multiple Man being able to be spread. So that's like a 9-power Multiple Man twice. That's 18 power. If you somehow can ramp it out, right, and you destroy him, then I don't know, you play a ramp card. Get it out, then you can move him, and you got something crazy going on. Kraven, sure, like what, an extra little small boost of power. There's just interesting, like Dagger, the low cost that you even have the chance to destroy, because realistically, you can work with 1 and 2 cost cards, maybe 3 in there, destroy it on 4, bring it back on 5. That's going to be the most logical or practical way of doing it, yeah? So what are some cards that you see outside of Dagger and Multiple Man that you like?
When I was looking at this card, I got super excited for one of my favorite cards in Marvel Snap that I feel like, Cozy, I'm the only one that plays. I'm the only one that pulls this card out. And I used to hide it behind Invisible Woman because I didn't want it to get destroyed.
Yes.
But Atuma.
Dude, yes.
If we think about what Atuma does, right? Like you basically force feed Atuma into a death, right? It's a turn 4 play that I think works very well in conjunction with Phoenix Force because it's played on turn 5. It's not an obvious thing. And now you have this 10 additional power. Well, I guess this is 17 power in total. No, sorry, 16 power in total. Good math there, Alex. But I was thinking about Vision being 5/7. So we have 16 power that can now move while also propping up the other winner in this Phoenix Force card, which is Null. You're adding 10 power to Null on turn 6. You've got the Atuma blowing up on turn 4, and on turn 5, you're bringing it back with mobility? Cozy, am I wrong to think that this is one of the top synergies available for this card?
So I love it outside. I love it because it's kept in check because Atuma still has to be in his own lane, right? So you can bring him back. The guy still has to be in his own lane. So moving him around, you're kind of like limited more a little bit to your opponent if they want to still Shang-Chi it. But as far as just like base core, like this is where some like interesting decks are coming out. Yeah, dude, Atuma was on my list. Loved it. I think this was a very interesting card because he's one of those. Him and the next card I want to talk about are like ones that destroy, and they're getting destroyed, right? And you don't have to commit anything to destroy that. So like, talk about the biggest thing about it, right? Is you just let him kill himself, right? Like Atuma is just gonna like nope out, and then you're able to have him as a 16 power, Vision in some sorts, right? It's such an interesting card, Alex, because there's ones that we could easily go crazy about, like Galactus, oh my god. But here's the thing. How are you going to destroy these cards, right? And I think we'll break that down after we talk about some more combos. Like, how is this actually going to be feasible?
There's a lot of potential, right? But like, I think that the like Arnim Zola also is a huge potential, like massive kind of synergy here in interesting ways. Because if you can cheat out the Arnim Zola on turn 5, and then you have the Phoenix Force on turn 6, but like the way that combo actually shows itself, like, is it Venom? Is it? I'm not sure. Like, I don't have an answer. Like, this is one of those cards like we really want to play with. But what I will say is like, I think I come back to Null again. Yeah. Because like even with the Atuma situation, you could forcibly destroy the Phoenix Force by moving it just to ramp your Null in another location. So like let's say you have a stormed location that you've won, you could actually move the Phoenix Force to intentionally destroy it while playing Null into the location you want to challenge. So like there's really interesting kind of like ways to move around like with flexibility. Like, I don't know, but dude, I'm telling you, I think this card's going to be complicated.
Ramp. So it's like Destroy Ramp, I think, is what's going to be evolved, right? Because a lot of these cards are kind of higher cost cards, and it all goes back to Kingpin, because you have this self-activator, right? Like, you have a way to, kind of like Atuma. It's just a way to destroy the card. Bro, and then, yeah, with Arnim Zola, what's the biggest problem lately, right? It's like, oh, man, the odds of having a lane by yourself is so rare these days. But then you would essentially be able to create that a lot easier, whether you're moving the Phoenix out or moving it in. And then, yeah, you have this Null as a safety gate, which is already being used a little bit now, but I feel like it brings even more dependency or more reliability with that. Dude, I think we're onto something. I think we're cooking, and I know we just did this here, but I think we've got a little, like, destroy rampish package. The other thing I think, too, is obviously you want to ramp this out, right? Electro, Wave, sure. The one that I'm interested in is Lockjaw, because there are some destroy Lockjaw builds out there, but having this come out of Lockjaw, and then you can move it and get more cards out of Lockjaw, and then that card either brought back something that you destroyed, kind of interesting. I think that could definitely have some synergy.
I like the idea of using Lockjaw. I do, but it brings into the question though that the selection of the destroyed card is going to be random, right?
Yep.
So like if you're playing like Thanos Lockjaw, and you Killmonger your own stones or something like that, like if you bring back a stone, is that really that valuable? Like there's some. I mean, I think that's kind of like a balancing factor. Like you just can't destroy everything because then you're just gonna, you're not gonna bring back what you intend to. But if you can control what you want to destroy, and like it's kind of like Ghost Rider. When you control your discard, when you're discarding Agatha, like with Ghost Rider, you're bringing Agatha back, and I think that becomes really valuable. So what's the key kind of deck that you see with Lockjaw that you feel like is going to give you that control that like makes it that valuable?
Yeah, no. So like that's a good question, right? And when can you do this? Like when is this actually plausible? And how do you make your chances better with like Jubilee or whatever to get double pulls out of the Lockjaw? It would have to be either a late Lockjaw. I don't even know how much it matters. Yes, it matters which card comes back, but even like a 1-cost card, it's still like movable. You're making a vision, right? Like that's how I think of it. It's another way, it's another thing to come out of Lockjaw that benefits from destruction. I think is the thing that I'm looking at the most. And then if you high roll, like hell yeah, right? Like it just kind of works out. That also just made me get a little giddy about Iron Lad again. I'm like, dude, I love Iron Lad. The fact that he could just be every card in the game is also kind of nutty. But yeah, so as far as the destroyed build, the destroyed Thanos is probably where I would potentially see him as a Soul Stone. I could move around, some kind of unique combinations like that. What I want to see is, because this reactivates on reveal, right? Let's look at these on reveal cards and you kind of start here, like which ones when they come back are going to have like some of the most like, wow, that is actually going to be kind of nice. And of course you could do this with everything, but realistically, right? Like what is going to be plausible to kind of get cooking a little bit? Obviously Mr. Sinister, we do know from like Iron Lad, it's a direct clone. So this would be a 2/8 at that point, right? So that's kind of one. You have Brood is going to be the exact same vein. So it's those interesting. Obviously, anything that's a 0 cost that now comes back for a second time, and then you're able to have power attached to that. Kind of hot. Not gonna lie, kind of love it. I'm scrolling here, Alex, and you stop me when you see something like, hey, wait a minute. And again, it's around these cards, right? It's these 4-ish cost cards. What about, I feel like some Silver Surfer stuff going on. There's already like that really cool like Surfer Destroy deck. I don't know if you've seen it with like the Sabretooth and yeah, it's cool, right? Cool. Venom, you got Sabretooth. There's a lot of 3 costs there. Being able to get a Surfer back for a second reveal, a second boost up is kind of interesting, man. I think you're right. I think this is not an obvious card. There are obvious synergies with the card. Obviously. There's obvious synergies, obviously.
It's obvious.
Yeah, exactly. But where my head goes, Alex, is on a normal game of Snap. If I get this in my opening hand, I'm going to try to destroy something on 4 that I played on 3. And then you played on 5, right? So does that mean just getting a... Dude, but you don't want to get Maximus. The last thing you want to do is get Maximus triggering twice, right? But in theory, you'd have a 13 power movable card pretty easily.
I would argue that Maximus triggering twice doesn't mean anything, because once he triggers once, you've probably stacked their hand.
Yeah, right.
So what value? Maybe they're drawing 1 extra card, but you have a massive movable card on turn 5. So I mean, it's not crazy. And if you've destroyed a Maximus, then already you're starting off with your null. Maybe you're playing Yondu on 1. You snipe like whatever rock slide. You add 5 power there. Like I think there's value in that. Like I wouldn't rule out like something like a Maximus. And this is what's interesting about Phoenix Force. Like you're kind of debating between the value of the on reveal effect versus the straight up movable power that you gain when you destroy that card and bring it back. Like it's a really interesting card. Like that's what has got my head kind of wound, is that like you have these on reveal effects, you have the power, and they're often kind of at odds with each other. Like Maximus is an incredibly strong 3-cost card because it's extremely negative effect, right?
What about, I'm just staring at him. I just see him and I'm like, wait a second. What about Vulture? What about is it an 18 power, 19 power Vulture? Because think about this. You play Iron Fist on 2, whatever you need to do. All good, great, gravy. Move it, kill it, it merges. So that's 8 plus 6 is 14. Plus, you move it again, that's 5. So it's 19 power. You're going to move it again into any lane for 19 power. So it's a card that, and again, I say Vulture. Obviously, we already said Multiple Man and Dagger, and it's like, well, no crap, Vulture. But it's another card that just directly benefits that you can boost before you do the move.
It absolutely does. And I think it's like, it comes down to like, what do you destroy on turn 4? That makes the most sense, right? And like, can you really destroy, like, you'd usually play Vulture on turn 4 because you'd be playing the Iron Fist with Vulture, right? That's kind of usually how it's played. But if you get it on turn 3, what do you do on turn 4 that destroys it?
Yeah, hear me out. Ready for this, dude? This is wild.
I'm ready.
This is not going to be something you could do all the time. But think about playing Iron Fist on 2, Vulture on 3, wait for it, Ghost Spider on 4, and Carnage. So,
oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Yeah, okay, so it's possible.
So
that is like snappable.
You move it again, dude. That would be like a 24 Vulture at that point.
That's pretty insane.
That is, wow. To think Vulture could be, but I mean, kind of. And Vulture is one that you can move early, opposed like Dagger, right? That doesn't really have, there's not enough setup on the board for Dagger. But okay, so we just sat here and we came up with 2 things that I know we both weren't thinking before we sat in these chairs. So that's exactly what you were talking about. I think the card on paper, it feels like Nimrod, but way more possibility, yeah?
Yeah, and something that we're not really touching on that much here is that, like, it's also a defensive card to some degree, because if something gets Shang-Chi'd, that card comes back, right? However, in my experience, and like, I mean, I know we're both Zabu enjoyers out there, but like with Zabu Shang-Chi, it comes down to 3 costs. I'm playing my Shang-Chi's almost exclusively on turn 6. I feel like I am.
Yeah.
Sometimes if Monster Island's out there and it just curves perfectly, I'll just punch out the monster and that's fine. But if they just bring that monster back and now it's mobile on turn 5 and 6, then all of a sudden, you know, things are looking a little down south. So I do think the Phoenix Force has potential to be a defensive card, but the offensive capabilities are pretty fantastic as well. But like, I keep coming back to the fact that this is a very complex card. And I think it's one that like will not be immediately figured out. And I think that it's going to be like the type of card that we're like 3 weeks down the line, people will be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I think we just broke the meta. This is the deck. And then it comes out, right? Because I think the first few days of experimentation are going to be wild.
Yeah, you bring up a point I definitely want to talk about. And it's cool, dude. Even just sitting here, I'm like, a Mojo. You kill a Mojo, you have a 2/8 Mojo that now you can forcefully move into a lane where you can get maybe a little bit better chance. There's going to be a lot of kind of like, who is going to be the smartest person to come up with these weird, essentially hybrid destroy decks. Everything's going to be like hybrid destroy. I think Venom and Carnage will be the mainstays in those kind of weird decks. Already good value cards, already counter things like Hobgoblin, so not bad cards to put in. But we'll move on, but the thought process you said is, you also have a card that's just a 5/6 in value. You also have a card that protects you if someone does have to play Shung a little early. Or if you get that you built that Nebula up, right? And you know, sometimes you play Killmonger on 5 and 4, you know? You have to set up some other things. You want to put the Null down on 6. So now you have this insurance for your Sunspot, your Nebula. You know, I kind of like that aspect too, even if nothing destroys. Or for once, Alex, for the love of God, there was never something like, dude, I don't know about you, but you start a game and you see this little guy come out and you're like, well, there goes that card. He's done. But now you have a way to directly counter a pretty common card.
What about something like Black Widow, where like you're not really adding that much power, but on turn 5, you're preventing their turn 6 draw? I think that could be pretty insane. And while also adding a card to their hand, possible Ronin synergy. I don't know. I'm just thinking, spitballing ideas here.
Cards that don't feel good to play on 5, but you get to play now with power and move. Yeah, for sure. Like, the possibilities are endless. The last note I want to say before moving to the other cards coming out this month, guys, that, you know, I know people are already ready for the comments. So, like, here we go. You forgot one card to talk about. I think this significantly boosts up one card in particular that we haven't talked about, and it so happens to be in the same family. And that's the X-Men family. Negasonic. This is the easiest card to have hand selection of destruction, right? You play this on 3, you can destroy whatever you want on 4. And just whatever you want. Play a card down, it's dead, it's gone. It could be a Darkhawk. It could be whatever you want. And it makes it a lot easier to have that hand-selected destruction, right? It's Spider-Man 2099, dude. You throw him on Negasonic, kill it, and then you can move it to any lane and get a free destruction. Kind of hot.
That is kind of cool. I never really thought about Negasonic, but I mean, you'd have to kind of 50-50 the Negasonic itself, right? Because there's a chance you get the 5-6 Negasonic effect, which might not be bad because then it's like, okay, like you can guarantee you can actually move a card and say, no matter what, I'm winning this lane because I have priority. And if they put, even if you don't have priority, oh, it just occurred to me. If you don't have priority, the move effect happens first. So it doesn't matter if you have priority. If you get the Negasonic effect, you move first.
You got a nuke that you can move.
Yeah.
And or like, let's say it brings back Negasonic, you can still throw into like a freaking Sanctum Sanctorum, a Storm Lane. It has 11 power now. You know, it's not a jump card. So you have a bomb that you can move, and then that's where you would have the null, right? Because then you throw, now you have a 5 you killed. Oh my God. It's wild.
That's actually pretty cool. I think the Negasonic one might be the most fascinating one you brought up. It didn't occur to me because you can just move it to win a location that's blocked off or something like that. Or you could like literally play null and then force into a location that you know you're winning, they can't trade, and it ramps your null. And like it creates these really interesting scenarios. I think I love the Negasonic call, Cozy.
This is cool. Again, the fact that we sat here and we're like, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a cool card. I don't really know. But now we're just spitting ball and combos, man. And what did we see after the last time we did this? It was move wave, and wave is now paramount and move decks. So we're going to have to see, does ramp win ultimately? Is it more these kind of destruction hybrids? Dude, well, time will tell, and we're going to find out tonight with some crazy builds, guys. And take these ideas, throw them out there, and see how they go. Now, we've got 3 other cards that are coming out in this. Actually, 4. There's a lot of cards coming out this month, man. This is one of those mega months, right? Let's go to Jean Grey, because I think Jean Grey is probably one of the... this is probably the biggest card canon-wise that we've gotten released, I think, in a while. If not ever. Well, not ever, but probably in a while. Jean Grey, man. I've been eyeballing this card for a long time.
My first initial spitball impressions, I can't believe this isn't the season pass card.
Yeah, right.
Like for me, it blows my mind. I had assumed it was the season pass card the entire time, but to be honest with you, I think that this is a really, really fascinating card. I like that it's an ongoing card, and we're gonna have a counter to that in the future. By the way, we'll be discussing shortly. It's an ongoing card, and I think it's a huge boost. Not that it needed it, but Nebula. Can Nebula get any stronger now? Like really, if you think about it, like Nebula now has a direct synergistic card on turn 3 that says, "Hey, you got to play here. Oh, you can't play on the Nebula lane because I thought you just can't." So Nebula gets value. So this isn't really a 3-3 because if Nebula just gets 1 tick, it's 3-5 already.
Honestly, this is my favorite control card to date. I think this is such a weird one because it affects both players, right? So it's like a Pro X where like you lock down the lane, right? No one can play. With this one, it affects both players, but you have the agency of playing it, which is, play it on 5, play it on 4. It's immediately like a win card if you're already winning a lane, or like an arrow. Like you don't care if it is in that lane. It's a very interesting way to control the aspect. And then they've showed it on the video. You can do Jeff movable cards is a smart way to kind of like get yourself out of there with Wasp popularity, right? So that's kind of my first like, that's gonna suck. Wasp Hulk. That's gonna lose a lot of cubes, man. People are gonna be relying on this thing. But I think the control aspect, because it affects both players, is hot. I like it.
The thing I love most about this, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, Silver Surfer. I just started getting heart palpitations with how excited I am. Listen to this. Jean Grey on turn 3, Brood turn 4 with Nova in another location. You're done with that location. You got 4 3-drops that are going to get benefited from Silver Surfer, and they're forced to play there. They're forced to play in that location. You filled it with Brood, and you have like complete like autonomy to play wherever you want.
Dude, you're right. Honestly, the Surfer build, I don't know why I didn't go straight there, because even looking at the other X-Men or other cards, like, let's just go to Negasonic again. You're guaranteed they have to play there. They have to play their turns there, right? So, like, Kingpin, you throw Kingpin in another lane, you make a play in this one, right? The Kingpin lanes they're trying to fill, it's very tough. We might get a little bit of synergy there. And then obviously, man, this card feels like it should have came out with a Guardian season, because, dude, Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, are going to obviously love this one, yeah?
Is this the buff that Drax was always waiting for, or what? This naturally Drax loves this. I mean, it's just, I love the idea of Kingpin. We brought up Kingpin so many times today, but okay, you have Kingpin on the board, Jean Grey, and then they have to play like, a 4 or 3 or whatever cost to try and fill that location. And then on turn 6, you play Magneto on the other side, just bring them all over and smash them all. That's pretty cool. But Oh man, it's crazy. It's just crazy how much like potential there is in this control card. And I know you love control. I know
Yeah.
you love control.
I think it opens up a lot of interesting play and a lot of like cool ways to interact with this card in particular. It's opening up more decks. Like between her and the old Phoenix, it's gonna open up more decks. And I'm sure that we're even forgetting some that like people are gonna be like, dude, how have you not said X card? Jean Grey was one of those cards that like had to be good. You had to have this card be good, and it adds another control card up the ladder. We lost Spider-Man, but you know, Daredevil, Jean Grey, Spider-Man, and then Pro X. So you have even more agency on some of these cards. Again, Guardians, Nebula. This is gonna be fun. I think there's some really cool aspects here. Even putting in zero-cost cards or cheap cards just to burn them, and then you could play at another location. Just they can't stop it, right? You have that Invisible Woman. They're trying to counter, man, and you throw the MODOK hella GG, right? But then you have a couple low-cost cards in there. There's some cool builds to be out there, man.
This actually gives space to Professor X in an interesting way as well. Because if you actually remember, I always say this, make turn 1 great again. So you play turn 1 and 2, your opponent doesn't. You play Jean Grey on 3. They're forced to occupy that location, right? They're forced to. They have no other choice. By turn 5, if they're not able to fill that location, you have free real estate on 2 locations on the board for Professor X. You don't even need Daredevil. Daredevil could have been played on 2 anyways. So, like, I think that the control element of this really makes your first initial turns matter, because if you can set up turn 1 and 2 where, like, you can get out of that location before your opponent does, like, you can Orca value turn 6, you have an empty location, you have Jean Grey. It doesn't look obvious. It doesn't look, oh my God, Galactus? Because they're not ready for the, like, I'm just saying, I think this card's fantastic.
Yeah, dude, I agree. And I think people are going to get mad to losing to it, but I think the setup, and again, we're going to have to see. If it's too easy, then they're going to have to jump. But I think the setup, you get the payoff, man. If you set this up, this brilliant master plan, and you have the cards needed, and you get the Pro X, and then you shut down that lane, and it's over, dude, I think it's worth it. I do have an important question to ask you, Alex. Okay, you ready for this? There's one card that got a buff a couple times now, all right? She's getting better. Now, see the text there. It says, ongoing. Players must play. Okay? Hey. Is this a player?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, Cozy.
Do we have a way to finally control this crazy witch, dude?
I'm not sure.
Like, I don't know.
I don't know. Like, you're right. You're right. It's entirely possible. I never, you hit me off completely off the cusp here. I have no idea.
I don't know either.
How that interaction works.
We're gonna have to see, because it plays your cards for you, but maybe they put the words players on. I don't know. I have no idea, because this would make both Ego and Agatha like a lot different, and or a way to cheat out of it. Like, you don't even necessarily need to control your Agatha. If you have this and your opponent has to play there, and then you're over, Agatha's over there willy-nilly, dude, just throwing out Ghost Riders and wildness. I don't know, man. We got a more dependable Agatha? Maybe. So Jean Grey, another cool card. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of cool things you can do. Jeff, Nightcrawler, and like you said, Pro X. A lot of X-Men synergy. So kind of a cool thing they did there. This is the YouTube short, the Content King, the I just won an Infinity Conquest because I did the craziest thing ever. What do we think of Legion?
It's a meme. I don't know. Like, during hot locations with Bar Sinister, it's funny that they released Bar Sinister this weekend and not when Legion came out, for instance. I don't know. It feels like a meme. I like it. I like the idea. And I like that it's a 5/8, because if you have a location, like, let's say there's like negative zone and you have Luke Cage on the board and you replicate that across the board, that is the most snappable turn I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, really. I think we really underestimate, as Marvel Snap players, how impactful locations are.
Yeah.
They're insane. I've gotten into the habit of, I never snap until I have a really firm idea. This is how, like, a lot of people say, Alex, give advice for like players that are struggling to rank up. Snapping when you understand for your deck, when your locations are advantageous, I think is one of the biggest skills that really help accelerate my game. And so to pretend like this card cannot be impactful, I think is disingenuous.
Yeah.
But also a total meme of the bunch, because it's so weird.
I think it's easy to write off, right? I've seen other people just like, this one's gonna suck. Like you said, Abomination's 5/9. That's like that's the king of the crop, pretty much, outside of what, like Daka, a couple other ones. 5/8. Okay, like, not terrible, just power, right? And if you clone a couple locations, I kind of like him in Conquest, and does that, like they said, Storm. I think that's a pretty dumb. Like, dude, you're not gonna the 5 cost. If he was a 4 cost, it'd be another story. Maybe you could ramp it out there with a Psylocke, something like that, to take advantage. Does it make something like Scarlet Witch better? So you have a location you don't like, you change it, and now you have another option to Legion, and you're building up to it. So now Scarlet Witch can be played out a lot faster, even the Reality Stone at that too, right? And now you have, what, 4 locations to pick from? There's the problem with Legion is there's such a big variance of locations. There's so many different ones. But once you start to tick up there, you know, there's got to be one that maybe is going to favor you a little bit more. Maybe it's a Savage Land that all of a sudden your opponent had, you know, Kitty and it's in their hand and boom, there's Raptors everywhere. Like, I think there's going to be more moments than people think, but it's still a meme card.
The card that kind of really came to mind from you when I was looking at Legion, like, what card really benefits from this? It's Rhino. It has to be Rhino, because let's say you hate locations and you just don't want them. You can just play Rhino and then just nullify all the locations every single game pretty much, because you're going to have this by turn 5 under most circumstances. So, like, is this a buff to Rhino? Is this the buff to Rhino that we've been waiting for?
Yo,
just make locations not matter?
Bro, you can straight up... So you're killing 2 turns, but you're just like, hey, it's over. Like, it's done. This is
What do you think? It's the 5/8 though. I don't think Cerebral. I thought of that. Is C8 the new play now? But how would you do with your stupid Rhino?
C8, guys. The C8 meta. You can now eliminate. You can now eliminate the randomness of Cerebro. You just have to burn every turn on the way there. So okay, meme card. I think he does have some like unique potential. Maybe we'll have to see with Legion. I'm gonna get him because I like chaos. Now we have 2 more guys. We've got Echo, and I think this is one that you know, obviously like low cost cards get people excited. We just continue to just shoot the 1 cost cards to the grave, man. Like this is gonna be in the mix of like kind of cool, man. Interesting, actually, more so. After your opponent plays an ongoing card here, remove its abilities. It's a 1/2, Alex. Now, obviously, like, okay, the Cosmo Killer. To be fair, kind of a big deal. Kind of a big deal for the Wongs.
I was just going to say it's Wong. It's Wong that really benefits from this because, like, when you play this on turn 1, it allows you to reliably set up a Wong. Now, naturally, like, Enchantress is still going to destroy Wong. Rogue still destroys Wong. But it does really have a negative impact on Cosmo. Cosmo specifically. Now, the fact that it only impacts your opponent's cards is important because that allows you to play on top of it with, like, if you want to play a Darkhawk, right? If you want to play your own Cosmo and protect your Darkhawk, for instance, right? Like, it does have some interesting utility, but like, it's gonna be hard for it to find play when, like, you think about what Nebula does, what Sunspot does, what Spider-Ham does. Like, these are huge, but I think this is a huge upgrade for Wong.
But ultimately, I think this card's gonna be just not gonna find its way in a lot of decks.
I wonder why they chose to make it location specific and not across the board. Like, if they obviously, like, if it's a Sandman, they just played another location, and I think that really hurts him. But it's like, it probably would have been too strong if it was across all locations, right? It would have to have been too strong.
So Jean Grey, shuts down. So Jean Grey, then Echo, and then you have they force the ongoing cards to go there, I guess, right? But like, yeah,
I guess that's true.
It would be, yeah, and I think they want to limit, like, let's say if your opponent's playing a ramp deck and they have Electro, dude, like, this would turn Electro off. So like, I think that's actually a way to counter this, kind of even.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Somewhat nasty, right? Or Red Skull. There's other decks that are going to be able to counter the card. I think Echo will be an interesting tech card. I just don't see it being used crazy amounts, especially because it's fighting the spot for the 1-cost spot. We'll have to see. Maybe ultimately with the Wong counter, it'll be strong enough. Guys, put down below where you think Echo is actually going to be kind of crazy. And finally, we've got Mirage. Now, my heart hurts, man, because we talked about this card months ago, and it was like going to disguise itself as a Mr. Fantastic, which, like, maybe that wasn't the coolest card to copy. But I think we now have a much better cable, almost a much better. Dude, this thing is the answer to bounce in some ways. What do you think of Mirage?
What I think is it's low-key probably the best of all of them. I think that this will probably be the most just, you know what, add Mirage to your deck and see what happens type card.
Yeah.
I think it's a I think it's a buff to Collector, which is fantastic. I think Collector's been getting all these additional tools, and I love that. I think this low key is fantastic. I really like it a lot. It's definite power creep on Cable. I almost feel bad for Cable. Like they must have a plan for Cable. Like they changed the way it interacts with Chavez. They change, like it's just even okay. Are they going to make Cable? I know we're kind of off the beaten path here, but are they going to make Cable draw the top card, even if it's just like a psychological buff and not an actual real buff? Is that just enough to make it at least feel better?
They kind of have to, because it's a Chavez Polar, man. That's his ability. And yes, okay, Cable takes the card from the deck. I get that. They don't get that card anymore. But, like, this gives you intel. It's better than the card that they currently have. It's a 2/2. I just don't understand. You are correct. I think this is going to find its way in a lot of decks. It's just, like, a nice counter card. Man, even Death, bro. You can take Deaths, and then you got a 14 Death on your side. You know, this will have more use than I think people give it credit for. If your opponent only has like big time cards, like a ramp deck, you know, like you take their Black Panther, like you're gonna benefit way more than they are. It's gonna be interesting when to play it. I kind of like it as a fill out card of a certain turn, like a turn 5 fill out. Yeah, maybe a turn 2, depending. But you know, turn 2 they could have loads of these kind of smaller cards, right?
And people don't put garbage cards in their deck. Like they put cards in their decks for a reason, because they're good cards and they perform. It's also a measured buff to Quinjet, right? Because you could still pull a 1 and Quinjet doesn't get value from there. But if you pull a 2, 3, or 4, suddenly you have a discounted buffed version of their low cost card. So Quinjet could be really fascinating here. I really do see it working in, obviously, of course, in Devil Dinosaur style decks as well, because you're filling your hand. It has a very, very similar effect to White Queen, except you're actually buffing the card, which is super significant because it makes the card you take more valuable later in the game.
Again, I think the possibilities here, like there was a, here, I'll pull it up right now. This is on my meta deck report, right? This is one of my new favorite decks. I freaking love this deck. It is about the Collector, getting them nice and hot. You have all the card regeneration, really strong in Conquest. Cable could not fit in here. You just didn't bring enough, right? Whereas, maybe not set. No, you were going to have to figure out which one you could take out here. Probably Agent 13. You now have this card that is going to build up. You have the Quinjet. You have the Collector. Everybody's benefit. Everybody is eating off this card. And then you get a little bit more to the pie, right? You get the +2. This is where I see it fitting. This is at least the deck that I'll be playing it in. And I think you're right. I don't know if it's going to be the best one of the bunch. Jean Grey seems wild to me. But this does seem way up there.
Jean Grey seems like by far the best control one, but I feel like this might have like the Spider Ham can kind of feel like can go anywhere style effect, especially in Conquest, because I think the intel from this is important. That's something I learned, like we're going to be talking about Conquest shortly, but like Spider Ham and Conquest is so valuable because of the intel it gives you right off the bat. And then when you're playing the same person over and over again, you know, okay, well, they're playing, a destroyer deck. Well, I'm going to hold it till turn 5 so I can destroy their destroyer. Oh, they're playing a ramp deck. I'm going to play it early so I can hit their beast or whatever. I think that the intel you're getting is super huge, and I think Mirage is going to benefit from that as well.
So here you guys go. This is all of the season pass cards, and again, I think when you first looked at it, it wasn't like too exciting, but I don't know, man. I think these have a lot of practical use, and a lot of these cards are going to be used for a long time to come, and they're all coming with Spotlight Keshes, making them all way easier, right? So we're going to get it announced what cards are coming out when, and if you want Mirage, you can just save up at that point and open it.
I think that most notably here is I think this is one of the most complex season passes from a gameplay perspective. There's a lot of mechanics at work here. And I think that it goes to show you how much faith Second Dinner has in the player base becoming more familiar with the game. And there's the ability to say, you know what? I think that the season pass cards can be very complex. I think this season we can really pull some niche cards that have very niche play styles in very niche decks and allow players to get creative. Like Phoenix Force is not an easy card to play. It's not a straightforward season pass card like the way Nebula would be, or even Silver Surfer, or like if you think about how these season pass cards have been designed, Phoenix Force is a deviation from that to some degree. It's so complex compared to the others. So I do really see this as a season where the developers are saying, all right, players, take the wheel and let's see what you can do.
So Alex, our next topic is going to be the Infinity Conquest, my friend. And, I'm fresh out. I've done my runs of Infinity Conquest. It has been the week. This is the last day as of recording this, and then all tickets, medals, everything back to nothing. And we go and conclude our first month of Conquest, Alex. And to me, I got a lot of things that I want changed, but I think Conquest was an absolute blast. I loved it. It restored a lot of my love for Snap in a lot of different ways, man. Infinity Conquest, how did it go for you, man? We haven't even talked about this.
Yeah, I think Conquest overall is fantastic. And I like the idea of holding the Infinity Conquest to the last week of the season. I think they probably do it for matchmaking reasons, because I think you have to hoard the tickets to get the Infinity Conquest, right? And my experience has been very positive. And I like that every single time I step into Conquest, there's stakes.
Yeah.
Ranked doesn't even feel like that special to me anymore. Like once I get to Infinite and I get the rewards, I'm just moving on from Ranked. And I know there's going to be a new leaderboard coming out, and there'll be people that are going to be interested in that. But for me, I think Conquest is my home. I really like Conquest. I love that, even if I have a rough run, I just re-queue another one. I go and I put my best gameplay forward, and I try and win those tickets. I've really enjoyed Conquest, and I look forward to what this mode's going to do for the future of this game, because I think, generally speaking, people are enjoying it.
Yeah, for season 1 per se of Conquest, like it's already fun, and they could just add to it, completely. Did you get an avatar? What'd you pick? How did it go?
I haven't been so lucky, Cozy.
It's hard.
I've lost a couple on round 4. But That being said, I got to defend myself. Allow me to defend myself.
No, dude, please.
I'm not taking high evolutionary decks in. I'm not taking high meta stuff in. Like I was making runs at it with like a Ronin list and stuff like that. So like I'm trying to be creative. That's actually one thing as a content creator I think people don't really realize, is that like we kind of don't get to play like the top meta stuff all the time, because like who wants to actually just watch us do that? Like when Galactus was like top notch, like I never played Galactus. I never played Shuri, because like it wants to watch me play like the top meta list. So we try to be creative, and well, let's just say that sometimes creativity costs you Infinity tickets.
Yes. So I totally. Here's the. I want to say this because I've had people from all skill levels come to me about Infinity Conquest. You guys have to remember the 5 knuckleheads that your buddy happened to get, and they just sail through it. And this isn't devaluing anyone that's done it, right? Everybody plays different opponents, right? You could theoretically get the 5 best players in Snap, or 4 best players on your way up the top, right? Like that could happen. Your buddy could get some of the worst that has just happened to get some tickets, right? So I've seen people like measure their skill through this, and it is important. Like it is extremely skillful to get through this thing. 31, I don't know the math. I think it's like 31 people have to lose for you to win technically, right? Like there's a lot of losers in this thing, and I gotta say this, there's ways I think they should fix it, but I'm totally on the camp of people getting frustrated that it's hard. I think we need hard, man. We need hard game modes. It's not meant to be an everybody wins, and hooray kind of thing. It's it's supposed to be for the sweaty, and I think it's pretty cool. I just don't want people. Do not measure yourself on if you've beaten this or not. I've had 3 runs that I've lost on Battle 4 and 5. Right? I had, ready for this, a null play on Battle 5, 8 cube stake. They had Camp Lahai Rogue, stole my null, and I lost. In a deck that didn't have Rogue. There's things that are going to happen. Did it affect me? Listen, I had a pretty bad tilt fest, okay? I got my Crocs on and I walked a mile. But you just never know who you're going to go up against. I got mine with Thanos and then a Destroy build. But dude, it's so fun. I haven't felt like alive like I have in Snap than playing Infinity Conquest.
The one thing that Conquest has really brought to my attention is how, if you're a high-skilled player, you could, through Conquest, by being conservative with your snaps, your retreats, and everything, kind of nullify RNG to an extent. Like, if you get bad RNG location-wise or bad draw, that impacts 1-2 games perhaps. But on aggregate, across an entire run, that RNG becomes normalized, where your opponent's going to be getting bad RNG. You're going to be getting bad RNG. And knowing when to retreat out of those games where you're like, you know what? I'm giving the cube away. Like, it's not worth it. Like, I think that's so important. These cubes are so valuable. And over time, I think maximizing your opportunities to minimize the negative RNG and maximize your ability to like identify when you can steal cubes is huge in Conquest.
Yep. Oh, that is one of my biggest tips. And I want to talk about tips or in the subject on if you didn't do Infinity Conquest, guys, like you're not bad. Like give it another go next month. You're going to kill it. Trust me. Like I'm not going to name names. I know some of like what I would consider top 10 players had a rough time and some didn't even complete it. So like it is, yeah, Alex is who I'm talking about for sure for you audio listeners. No, but seriously, like guys, tough game mode, a lot of fun. There's some things I think they can do to fix it. We'll talk about that. But as far as like little tips that I learned, you really, I think, brought the point home. almost every time I won was off of 8 cube big time games. I lowered my RNG chances and I feasted on the overconfidence of opponents. And I'll be so, guys, listen, the stats won't back this up, probably. Balance is doing well in here because of the change of priority, and it's very hard to counter because of that. High Evo, man, I'll be damned. I am begging for high Evo players when I'm in here. I'm begging for that turn 6 Hulk. Man, it's so obvious what's gonna happen. It's such, the decks that are more straightforward, linear, obvious are way worse in Infinity Conquest because of the skill level. I mean, significantly worse in my opinion. Now, that being said, I just did the meta deck report and I broke down literally like the top 20 decks in Snap at the moment. And I gave it like a 1 through 5 star ranking. And I do think High Evo is a good consistent deck, especially like the Lockjaw version. I just feel like when I know what they're going to do, for instance, my first avatar that I earned was from a play where I knew it was going to be a Hulk drop, right? I was able to play around that one specific play and then capitalize on an 8 cube win. Whereas if it wasn't the Hulk, it was something a little bit different, then it was going to be a lot harder, and maybe my overconfidence would have lost me the game.
I think that High Evolutionary has some value in its consistency. Like its play pattern is very straightforward. I think like the Jane Jaw High Evolutionary list that you so graciously thrust upon this meta is like absolutely really good. But you're right, it has a very predictable play pattern. Often they're sitting in that location begging to get Shang-Chi'd, right? So having decks like, you know, like the Nick Fury Rocks and Hawks thing, where you might have a Shang-Chi with a Zabu on turn 6 is extremely valuable, right? Like I think that Conquest is all about knowing when to strike. Like literally like a snake slithering in the grass, when to strike. And I think that High Evolutionary is so prominent that you know exactly what that deck looks like. You know exactly what's happening on turn 6. It's Hulk and it's Wasp.
Yep.
Where are they putting them? You could probably even guess that too. But when a deck is not as meta, when a deck has surprise cards in it, and you've not revealed your surprise cards, you know, that is when Conquest gets really spicy. When you're able to really take someone by surprise on turn 5 or 6 for 8 cubes, when they don't know that you have that Cosmo, when they don't know you have that Rogue, and I think that's what gets me excited.
Yeah, and it's like tennis. Like I mean, it's funny. You want to stay out of your head a little bit, guys. If you lose 4 cubes in the first round, it's okay. Go look at my runs with Thanos and some gold runs too. I came back multiple battles because, like you just said. Yeah, man, I lost. And I even showed one of my cards, but they didn't see the claw. They didn't see my claw that I popped out. Or, man, you know, Sokovia came up and it discarded Professor X. They know I have that now. I got to remember that. But I know they have X card now, too, and they still haven't seen my other 2 aces in the hole. And so most of the wins that I got, or to Battle 5, was by saving that big cube gain. Or even they won like 2 in a row, and they got like 3 cubes. But then they had the confidence train going, right? They're going in the next turn, like snapping automatically. And then I won that for 7, right? Or whatever I had left at that point. So definitely do agree with you there. High stakes rounds, they exist, man. They're good. They're really solid. Like you said, location advantage is super important. Knowing decks is probably better than ever. And feasting on overconfidence. Now, I did see a suggestion that I really like about Conquest as a whole. I think they either need to make it 8 cubes, 8 total health, or they need to make it, I believe, like 12, right? And then have higher stake rounds begin earlier. And so it equals out time-wise. You either need to make comebacks more realistic, or just get rid. And then listen, I'm a guy that literally have come back from these like really impossible games. 99% of the time, it's hard, man. It's very hard to come out on top after those. That's something I would like to see change as like the majority of time commitment in there. Alex, what are your thoughts there?
So you just literally hit the most important element of Conquest. And that's something that I'm wrestling with as well. And I'm trying to form an opinion on. So first of all, the perseverance of Conquest is key. Because I just released a video. I released a Ronin Crystal list. I'm not even joking, which is actually pretty damn good. And in both, it was a gold run. First game, I was down 8 cubes right off the bat and had to climb all the way back 5 wins in a row. Second game, same thing. Down all the way to 2 health, climbed 5 games in a row to ultimately win the 3rd game and get the gold. Like, those were incredibly difficult matches. However, what I will say is, like, I'm hesitant to say, okay, get rid of the ability to make those comebacks realistic. I'm hesitant for that because if you go to 8 cubes then like you have the opportunity to go all in, which I think is an advantage. But you have these like one-off games where it's just like, oh, you misrolled your gun, and you lose that ability to really claw back, which is notable. However, if it's at 12 and the high stakes round starts earlier, you can mess up maybe the first round, but you still have 4 cubes to really chunk them back.
Yep.
Right. So maybe the net length of the game at 12 actually comes down because you can attack more cubes in subsequent games.
Yep.
Really interesting point, Cozy. I'm not sure I have the answer. I'm curious of your thoughts.
Yeah, so again, I hope they take the feedback. I think it's a really smart, interesting decision. The other thing I would like to see change to move on from the subject is essentially, I'm fine with the one loss. I've been at Battle 5 multiple times. It sucks, guys. It's a bummer. It's just part of it, man. It's part of making what makes it hard and whatnot. However, I think if you make it to 3 wins on this bad boy, if you get up to here, man, you get 3 wins, I think they give you a gold ticket. And then if you get up to 4 wins, I think you get your infinity ticket back. 4 or 5 wins. To me, yes, I get it. They're not going to get their precious gold. But the medals, man, like at a point, I have so many medals at this point. I'm just like burning boosters. Like I've had thousands of medals from Infinity Conquest. I feel like getting yourself a gold ticket back, you don't have to start all the way back at Proving Grounds. Like to me, it feels like if you got that far, throw a bone.
You're definitely right. Being able to get additional Infinity and Gold tickets would be incredibly valuable throughout the process. I think the easiest way to rectify that, instead of like giving them like as you enter certain stages of Infinity Conquest, which I still think is a good idea, you could just make it so that you could buy more of them in the shop because they were limited purchases. You can only buy 1. So maybe let you buy 3 of them, maybe 5 of them. Make them more expensive, but make them, repetitious purchases. Because at some point, like you're going to run out of medals, right? So I think there are options around that. And we're only in the first season of it, so we should give them a chance to, reiterate a little bit.
So yeah, man. And then my last complaint, I got to say, is this avatar, as cool as it is, man, which my community voted on a rock, sadly. Not Star-Lord, not a rock. It's not flashy enough, man, for how hard this is. And I'm not, dude, listen, I don't need like Thanos to come out before the game and be like, look at this avatar, damn it. It's just not flashy enough. It almost actually is like way too similar. I think it needs a little sparkle, like a wow kind of factor, personally. But do you maybe? Yeah.
Just get the border that's happening on the pillar over there and put it on the avatar. Like, look at the pillar. It's like vibrating with power. Just put that on the avatar and we're good.
The pillar's like way better. But yeah, without question. So Infinity Conquest, this conquest closes. This is your last reminder to spin your medals and or use your tickets because they're gone. They're completely gone, and we go to the next season. And yeah, man, I think the Green Goblin season, the medal shop. I'll go to my shop here for people. Yeah, man, I was just buying these over and over. I have 1 billion of these Green Goblin boosters now because it was the only thing really left to buy. And yeah, I think it was cool that I could like just essentially get a Green Goblin that I like now, like a split that I like. And this spot, I'm like 90% sure is Mr. Sinister next season, which is a lame, in my opinion, a lame card, bro. I am disappointed by Mr. Sinister being the card. It's not one that's all 1 or 2 Cerebro 2 players and a couple Patriot players are going to be happy. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't bring the same oomph as Green Goblin.
Yeah, I would have liked to see a more impactful card there. Like, it would have been a chance for them to really showcase some really cool variant art. I mean, I would have been really happy to see that Archer Mystique variant there, but maybe that's just some wishful thinking. Okay, I'm buying that card. Right? Okay, please let me buy that card. Just put that variant somewhere where I can just purchase it right away, please. Make it rotate into the token shop as an ultimate. I don't care. Let me find a way to get that into my collection.
Yeah, I get it. Like X-Men, like fantastic, but like as in Mr. Sinister, right? Like I get it. But yeah, you can have Mystique, you can have a Cyclops. Like there's some cooler. I don't know, man. I feel like Mr. Sinister was a bit of a letdown, and it doesn't look like the shop, from what I've seen, is going to be changing all that much either. I hope they change that. I think that this shop, the changes I would make to it is that either have tickets buyable with medals, like period, or just have gold or credits at a guys. Hike up the price. I don't care. Like if it means that they can be in here, if these medals are a little bit more, throw in more of these mystery variants. There's opportunities here, and I don't want second dinner. Like, don't be lazy. Don't just be like, it's good, we're done, like the season pass. I really think that you can expand this shop and show that you're invested into the game mode too, because this thing has some damn replayability.
I agree. There's no question about it. I think that this is one of the best modes, if not the best mode they've ever released. I think that the rewards in the mode are notable. And if you can provide players with an incentive to just simply play your game and get rewards, and the form of boosters, variants, those brand new premium variant kind of unlocks, right? Those new variants that you're getting without the pixels, they're called what, premium ultra variants or something like that. I can't remember what the exact name is. Add one of those in there, please. Or every time you buy a variant, why not make it okay? The first time you buy a variant, it's 500 medals, and then it goes up to 750.
Yes,
then it goes up to 1,000. Have a scale so that you can buy multiple variants, but it'll go up in cost or something like that. I think that would be cool.
All right, guys. Well, with that, we're going to be going to Alex's side of the channel for the season pass rankings, all of them so far, favorite cards this season, and quality of life update wish list. And I'm excited to talk about those. Guys, thank you for coming to another version of the Snapchat. Good luck in the new season on the ladder and Conquest. And as always, guys, until the next one, happy snapping.